That shows to what extent they have declined. I've been told that they are in big trouble financially, hence why they had to get rid of most of their expensive staff.
$14 million. That's what Harry and Meghan paid for their Montecito mansion back in 2020. The sprawling 9-bedroom estate was meant to represent everything they had left behind, and everything they were building toward. Freedom from the palace. Independence from the firm. A California dream big enough to hold all their ambitions. And now, according to multiple reports circulating among royal watchers, that very same mansion may be quietly listed as what's known as a pocket listing, an off-market sale designed to avoid the publicity of a traditional real estate transaction. Think about that for a moment. The couple who orchestrated the most dramatic royal exit in modern history, who signed massive deals with Netflix and Spotify, who were expected to prove they didn't need the monarchy's support to succeed, may now be trying to sell their American estate without drawing attention. The question isn't just whether the rumors are true. The real question is, how did we get here? How did the Duke and Duchess of Sussex go from being one of the hottest brands in entertainment to potentially downsizing their lifestyle in just 4 years? When Harry and Meghan first arrived in Montecito, the narrative was triumphant. They had escaped the constraints of royal life. They had chosen love over duty, authenticity over protocol. The mansion, with its 16 bathrooms, rose gardens, children's cottage, and private tea house, wasn't just a home. It was a statement. We made it. We don't need you. We're going to build an empire on our own terms. The announcements came quickly: Archwell Productions, Archwell Audio, the Oprah interview that broke viewership records, book deals, speaking engagements, and promises of content that would reshape how the world saw the couple. They weren't running away from anything. They were running toward something bigger. But somewhere between the promise and the present, the numbers stopped adding up.
I understand that things are very rocky with them at the moment. We have to have one tail left eye in sympathy.
The deals that were meant to fund their independence have either disappeared or been significantly reduced. The content they were expected to produce either never materialized or failed to connect with audiences. And the lifestyle they built, the staff, the security, the private jets, the wardrobe, all of it requires steady income. Because income, it turns out, depends on delivering something people are willing to pay for. That Montecito mansion, the physical symbol of their post-royal dream, now looks less like a fresh start and more like a monument to miscalculation. The professional setbacks didn't happen overnight. They built up slowly, like water damage, subtle at first, persistent over time, until suddenly the ceiling gives way. Start with Netflix. The cooking show Meghan filmed at her own home, the one meant to showcase her lifestyle brand and position her as a modern domestic and wellness authority, lasted just 1 season. It wasn't renewed. Not paused. Not reworked. Simply finished. The goal was to prove that the Duchess could carry a show on her own, that her appeal extended beyond her royal connection. Instead, it revealed something far less flattering. Audiences didn't show up. Then there was the Spotify deal, once promoted as a groundbreaking partnership. It produced only 1 season of Archetypes before the relationship ended so publicly that a Spotify executive reportedly referred to the couple as grifters. The comment spread quickly because it echoed what many in the industry had already begun to suggest: the Sussexes were more successful at securing deals than fulfilling them. And then there's Harry's speaking career, perhaps the clearest indicator of their changing market value. When he first entered the American speaking circuit, he commanded premium fees. Reports suggested his appearance at a J.P. Morgan event earned close to $1 million. At the time, the novelty of a real prince, one speaking openly about mental health and personal struggles, carried real commercial appeal. Corporate event planners were willing to pay for that level of star power. But royal commentators, including Lady Colin Campbell, have claimed that Harry's speaking fee has since dropped to somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000. That's not a modest decline. That's roughly a 95% drop. It's the market signaling, clearly and directly, that whatever Harry was offering in 2021 no longer holds the same value in 2025. The novelty faded. The openness began to feel repetitive. And a prince who once brought something unique to the American stage became, in the eyes of many, just another celebrity telling a familiar story. Now add the expenses. California's top state income tax rate exceeds 13%. Security for a family with Harry's profile is estimated to cost several $1,000,000 annually. Then there are staff salaries, property upkeep, travel, and the high-end lifestyle Meghan is reportedly determined to maintain. It all adds up. When the income was flowing, the numbers made sense. When those income streams slowed to a trickle, the math became a problem. A mansion-sized problem.
When Prince Harry walked into a room, everybody wanted to meet him. Now when Prince Harry walks into a room, everybody wants to avoid him.
There's a situation at Netflix headquarters that tells a story the company would probably prefer to keep quiet. According to reports, 2 storage rooms are now overflowing with as-ever products. The jam Meghan promoted so enthusiastically during her cooking show. The candle she described as perfect for setting the mood. The wine meant to pair beautifully with her carefully curated recipes. Even the flower petal sprinkles, items few people seem to fully understand. All of it boxed up. All of it taking up space Netflix would likely rather use for something else. Staff members have reportedly been leaving with armfuls of free products, sometimes as many as 10 items at a time. Not because of a generous employee perk, but because there's simply too much inventory and not enough demand. When the strategy turns into please, take this, the situation has moved beyond marketing and into something closer to damage control. Netflix, for its part, offered a standard corporate explanation: the items were created for promotional purposes. But that explanation raises an obvious question. Promoting what? A show that was cancelled? A brand still struggling to find a stable audience? A partnership that has produced more headlines than results? You don't need 2 storage rooms full of promotional material for a project that no longer exists. You end up with that kind of surplus when demand has been seriously misjudged. And the jam, candles, and wine sitting in storage point to something more uncomfortable than a simple inventory error. They reflect the gap between Meghan's vision and the market's response to it. She believed she was building a lifestyle empire. Netflix believed they were partnering with a cultural force. The storage rooms suggest that both expectations may have been overly optimistic. Of course, every business makes inventory mistakes. Overestimating demand is practically a rite of passage for consumer product launches. But what reportedly happened with as-ever goes beyond a typical miscalculation. It begins to look like a fundamental mismatch with the market. Then came a technical mistake that made the situation even more revealing. According to reports, a temporary website glitch briefly exposed internal inventory data, information that was never meant to be public. The numbers were striking. Approximately 500,000 unsold items. 500,000 products sitting in warehouses, waiting for customers who weren't buying. To put that into perspective, producing 500,000 units isn't a small, boutique operation. That's large-scale manufacturing based on demand projections that turned out to be far too optimistic. At some point, someone decided the market would absorb 500,000 products carrying Meghan's brand. The market, it seems, had other ideas. The response from Meghan came quickly, and offered its own explanation. The surplus, she suggested, wasn't the result of weak sales. The inventory had been produced in preparation for international expansion. The products weren't unsold. They were positioned for global growth. According to that narrative, those jams and candles weren't sitting idle, they were simply waiting for their moment, ready to reach customers in London, Paris, Tokyo, and beyond.
We forget the ridiculous things that Meghan did right from the off to make life incredibly difficult for the super PR team. Meghan wanted to make everything about herself, make sure that she got the camera angle, make sure that she got the front page. That was the goal.
But here's the reality about selling food products internationally: it isn't simple. Every country has its own regulations for consumable goods. Labeling requirements differ. Import duties apply. Distribution networks have to be built. You can't just ship American-made jam to European stores and hope it sells. There are rules. There are inspections. There are local partnerships, permits, and licenses that must be secured. So far, there's been no public evidence that has built the kind of infrastructure required for legitimate international distribution. No announcements of overseas retail partnerships. No filings with foreign food safety regulators. No confirmed logistics agreements with international distributors. Just the claim that global expansion explains the surplus, offered without supporting details to an audience that is becoming increasingly skeptical. The simpler explanation is also the more damaging one. As ever may have produced far more product than the market was willing to buy. And now Meghan's team appears to be searching for ways to explain away 500,000 reminders of that miscalculation. Behind closed doors in Montecito, the inventory issue has reportedly evolved into something more personal. According to sources speaking to various outlets, tensions have been growing between Harry and Meghan over spending, risk, and the future of their financial strategy. The Duke, these reports claim, has become increasingly concerned about their burn rate. Their expenses remain high while their income streams have narrowed, and Harry is said to be paying close attention to the numbers, even if adjusting their lifestyle isn't easy. One particularly telling detail has emerged from these accounts. Harry allegedly told Meghan directly, "We can't afford this." Not a suggestion to slow down. Not a cautious warning. A blunt assessment that their current financial reality doesn't support further expansion. Coming from someone born into extraordinary wealth, someone who has never had to think about money in ordinary terms, that kind of statement carries unusual weight. There's also an irony that's difficult to miss. This is the same Harry who once acknowledged in an interview that he needed to learn more about America's First Amendment after moving to the United States. Now he finds himself confronting another defining American principle, one that may be even harder for a former prince to accept. Market forces. Supply and demand. In a market economy, titles don't matter. Background doesn't matter. Public attention doesn't guarantee commercial success. If people don't want what you're offering, the business fails. The market doesn't recognize royal bloodlines.
But Meghan's not giving in, right? She believes that she has the star power, if not more star power, with the stories that she might have.
Reports suggest that Harry recognizes their situation may require adjustment. Meghan, by most accounts, sees it differently. If Harry represents caution, Meghan appears to represent determination or defiance. Sources describe her as convinced that this is not the time to scale back. Where Harry sees financial risk, Meghan reportedly sees the need to push harder, to invest more, expand faster, and prove critics wrong through persistence and growth. One of the clearest signals of this approach is pricing. As ever, products that struggled to sell at their original prices have, according to reports, become more expensive. The spreads increased. The teas increased. The wines increased. In traditional business logic, slow sales usually lead to discounts, lowering prices to find the point where demand meets supply. Meghan appears to have taken the opposite path, raising prices on inventory that was already moving slowly. That strategy only makes sense if the perceived issue is brand positioning rather than product demand. Here's where the narrative becomes more complex. Multiple sources claim that Meghan genuinely believes as ever could lead her to billionaire status, not just millionaire success, but the level of wealth associated with figures like Oprah or the Kardashians. From that perspective, current setbacks are seen as temporary obstacles on the way to building a long-term lifestyle empire. This ambition isn't unusual in entrepreneurship. Many successful founders faced early failures before eventual breakthroughs. The difference is that most successful businesses adapt to market feedback. They pivot when products don't sell. They adjust pricing, positioning, or offerings when customers respond negatively. They don't typically interpret large amounts of unsold inventory as a reason to raise prices. According to critics, Meghan's response hasn't been adaptation, it's been acceleration, more products, higher prices, bigger goals. Whether that reflects strong belief or risky overconfidence likely depends on how the next phase unfolds. For Harry, however, watching expenses while expansion continues, the concern appears more immediate. The pressure has reportedly begun to show in marketing tactics. For Valentine's Day, as ever introduced themed bundles, existing products repackaged with seasonal ribbons and holiday messaging. Festive on the surface, but according to sources, much of the inventory was simply older stock presented in new packaging. Then there's the secondary market. Reports have noted as ever products appearing on platforms like eBay in quantities that some observers believe go beyond individual resellers. While unconfirmed, speculation suggests efforts to move excess inventory outside official channels. If accurate, that would point to mounting pressure to generate cash flow. One product in particular drew online criticism: $13 bookmarks. Customers and commentators questioned the perceived quality relative to the price, arguing that the materials and design didn't justify the cost. The backlash reinforced a broader criticism that pricing and perceived value were out of alignment. Taken together, these signals suggest a company under pressure to move inventory rather than one confidently scaling a strong market fit. When old stock is repackaged for holidays, products appear widely on secondary markets, and pricing becomes a point of public ridicule, brand growth begins to look less like expansion and more like inventory management. At the same time, a separate development could affect Meghan's visibility in the US. William and Catherine are reportedly planning a major American visit timed around the country's 250th anniversary celebrations in 2026. The trip is expected to emphasize their roles as the future of the monarchy. Notably, Charles and Camilla are not expected to attend, positioning the visit specifically around the next generation. For Meghan, according to some reports, the timing is sensitive. The United States has been central to her post-royal identity, the place where she aimed to build an independent brand and career. An official royal tour featuring William and Catherine would likely generate significant media attention, inevitably drawing comparisons. The contrast would be difficult to avoid, one couple representing institutional continuity and global diplomacy, the other navigating entertainment deals, brand launches, and business challenges. Observers have long noted that Meghan is highly aware of media positioning. A high-profile royal visit could shift attention away from her at a time when public momentum is already uncertain. More broadly, critics argue that her current strategy reflects a familiar pattern: rapid pivots, aggressive visibility efforts, and a willingness to pursue high-profile opportunities regardless of timing. Reports have pointed to several controversial moments, including speculation about attending high-profile industry memorial events without close personal connections, which critics viewed as attempts to maintain visibility. At the same time, her relationship with her father, Thomas Markle, remains publicly strained, adding another layer to the public perception conversation. More recently, reports have suggested that Meghan is interested in developing a documentary-style project inspired by the success of imagery-building media projects on streaming platforms. According to speculation, she has explored potential interest from Jeff Bezos's Amazon. Her current public relations team faces a significant challenge: rebuilding public perception while high-profile criticism continues. Reputation management becomes difficult when new controversies repeatedly emerge. All of this brings the focus back to the Montecito mansion, the $14 million property that symbolized their independence and long-term vision. If reports about a quiet off-market listing prove accurate, the question becomes, what comes next? Possible scenarios include downsizing within Montecito, relocating to a lower tax state such as Texas, exploring property options abroad, including Portugal, where Harry has reportedly shown interest, or simply maintaining their current path and relying on remaining financial reserves. Sources frequently describe Harry as increasingly unhappy, a stark contrast to the confidence he expressed when leaving royal life 4 years ago. According to those accounts, his financial concerns continue, while Meghan remains focused on long-term expansion and eventual success. She is reportedly convinced that as ever will ultimately deliver the breakthrough she expects, that current difficulties are temporary and that persistence will prove critics wrong. Whether that outlook represents resilience or denial remains to be seen. What is clear is this: the couple who set out to build an independent American empire, determined to succeed without royal support, may now be facing financial realities that challenge the scale of that vision. The mansion they purchased in 2020 as a symbol of that future could, if rumors are accurate, become evidence of how difficult that transition has been. The sale remains unconfirmed, but the financial pressures behind the speculation appear real and growing. The story isn't finished. Whether the next chapter involves a new home, a new strategy, or a new balance between ambition and practicality, that chapter is still being written. The conversation is ongoing, and public opinion, as always, will play its part.